because of the depression, I started to get anxiety attacks. And I didn't even know it was anxiety attacks. I just used to feel like my whole body got stiff. It's through counseling, actually, that I recognized that it was anxiety attacks that I was enduring. We must find an outlet to vent. Mentally, we can go into septicemia as well, too. If it is we do not vent the toxic emotions and the toxic thoughts that could stay within our minds, and this can stay for years. And then we get heart attacks, we get high blood pressure. We are stressed out consistently. We're always in a place of anxiety. That is the reason why it is important to get counseling. Because if those things are held on to long enough, it could even lead to a place of suicide.
Real men, raw stories, radical perspectives. This is the voice of authentic masculinity. This is Manhood Speaks.
Kieron Regis, welcome to Manhood Speaks. Good morning. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you. And this is a platform for authentic masculinity. So we are going to do some deep diving.
Yeah, man. I like that.
So tell me, who is Kieron Regis?
Kieron Regis is an individual who has evolved over the years. If I were to talk about me, we probably might take a few years. But put it in a nutshell, I am an individual who would have gained a lot of positives and negative experiences, which has assisted me now, presently, to become the man that I am now. If you want to go like into my career, I teach leadership. I'm a leadership consultant. I am a father of 5 boys. In addition to that, I have been in a leadership position in Alpha Lodge number 20. I'm now a past master or a past worshipful master, to break it down in layman terms. I am presently the Grand Chancellor for the Grand Command, for the Grand Prairie of the Caribbean. That is my present post, which is an NGO that engages in a lot of charity as well. It's Christian-based, a Christian-based NGO that engages a lot of charity, and it builds its foundation following the traditions of the Knights Templar, to put it in a nutshell. So that's me in a nutshell there.
Interesting background there. So I'll be diving into these areas that you point out here. But before we do that, what brings you joy at this point in your life? What brings you joy?
Positivity actually brings me joy. When I see someone, putting in that effort to accomplish their goals, dreams, ambitions, and I see that it yields positive results, I consider that something that brings me joy. Also, when I accomplish something as well, obviously it will bring me a personal sense of fulfillment as well. But I think that the greatest form of fulfillment is when you can add value to the lives of others. So that is the key thing that actually brings me joy.
Interesting. So you said you enjoy seeing persons pursue their dreams and their goals and achieving it. I think that's something that is positive. It is something that is fundamental to society. And if it isn't, it should be fundamental to society, where we encourage other persons to grow and to expand. So what are you doing right now for your personal growth?
Right. Right now, I'm engaging in some activities in regards to business. I wouldn't be able to go into detail into it too much, because it's still in its infancy stages. So I have to be very cautious about how I release information concerning that. But I'm working, to put it in a nutshell, I'm working on establishing a legacy that I can hand over to my sons and we can hand over to their children. So this is the motivation for all of my actions presently.
That's a big one. So, Max, you're the father of 5 boys,
Yes.
and your aim is to create a legacy for your sons to handle.
So, yes, sir.
What does this legacy look like?
Well, one of the things that I would say, it must have a financial component in there. It must have a financial component. I think the Bible says that it is a wise man that leaves an inheritance for his children, even unto the third and the fourth generation. But a lot of times we as a people, we say, I work hard for it, so my children have to work hard for it too. And we don't give them a proper foundation. But other groups, they lay out a strong foundation for their children that the children could build upon it. So that's why I'm saying that it must have a financial aspect, because if we don't include that, we leave them at a disadvantage, especially when we are seeing the other groups that are laying a financial foundation for their children and they start off ahead of the race. So it must have that, but it also must have a component of integrity, right? If you look at the world now, the persons who stand out throughout history, persons like Martin Luther King, persons like Malcolm X in particular, because Malcolm X would have belonged to an organization that he loved. Then he began to observe what he interpreted as questionable actions, and he was not a blind follower. He stood with integrity with what he believed, whether we disagree with it or not, but he stood with what he believed was accurate. He left that organization and he started his own thing. And we know the history of that after. But at least his daughters could look back and say, my daddy stood on a principle. My daddy was an individual that carried himself with integrity. So that also is part of the legacy that I desire to leave behind.
Principles. Why do you think it's important for a man to stand on principles?
I think it is important because it appears that we live in a world where people refuse to stand on principles and they would accept status and trample upon principles. We will accept money and trample upon principles. And then we wonder why the world is going crazy. I'll share something personal as we are touching on this. There's an organization that I belong to. I was very influential in regards to the growth and development of that organization. Then I handed over leadership to someone else. I would have nominated that person for leadership because I had things personally that I had to deal with in regards to business and family life and so forth. And when this individual took over, they began to operate with, boy, it was really horrible. A lot of unethical actions, And when I spoke to the person that is above that person in rank, all they told me was to support that individual in spite of the unethical actions. And as much as I loved that organization, in October 2024 last year, I put in my documentation to lead that organization. Because I think that a man needs to carry himself with dignity and operate with principle. And, Martin Luther King said it perfectly. If you have nothing to die for, then you have nothing to live for. And I couldn't face my boys knowing that I was encouraging them that when they get older to become a part of this organization. And this organization has leadership that is not operating with integrity. So I decided to leave. Now, I'm not saying that I'm perfect. Of course not. I'm not, I have done wrong things in my life as well. But yet still, there must be a foundation of principle that we all stand upon. And that is integrity. And once that is compromised, an individual, in spite of all the status that you may have gained, you must be willing to walk away. Because in the future, the people who are usually labeled as criminals now, in the future, they are labeled as saints. And look at the history. Joan of Arc, she was persecuted because she believed something different. Now she's a saint. Mahatma Gandhi was labeled a criminal by the British Empire. Now he is revered as a hero. And the same thing, and I'll say this boldly, the same thing is going to happen with me. As centuries passes and people look back, they're going to say, hey, they ridicule him, they persecute him, because I'm still enduring some persecution because of the stand that I made back then from that organization, right? But guess what? In the future, when people review the incident or the incidents, I am certain that I will be the saint. And that's important to me because I have sons and I need them to see that their daddy stood with integrity.
Powerfully said.
Thank you, sir.
Principles, integrity. Kieron, you seem to have a very profound view when it comes to manhood. Tell me, what were the contributing factors in your childhood that allowed you to be the man that you are today?
Whew, that's a big one, eh? But I have to acknowledge my grandfather. There were other persons in there too, but my grandfather was the main one. He was the patriarch of the family. My grandmother, she never worked. My grandfather took up 100% of the responsibility in regards to taking care of the financial needs of the family and providing guidance and protection for his household. And I think that was the major impact because growing up with my granddad and, being exposed to other influences, there were a lot of clashes there. But as I got older and started to walk into manhood, I began to see through experiences that if I had listened to him, a lot of the negative experiences that I would have endured, I would have avoided it. So having those experiences taught me that we need to capitalize on the experiences of the elders, like how they would do in Africa. They would sit down with the elders and seek guidance. So gradually I started to remember certain phrases and certain statements my grandfather would have made to me as a young man growing up. He was a rough man, He was a real rough man, but he was an honest man. And I took that from him. So the biggest factor I would say there is the influence of my grandfather. I think he was the most major component in the philosophy that I have now of being a man.
What does being a man mean to you?
Well, one of the major things there would be responsibility. A real man takes up his responsibility. A real man holds himself accountable as well too. So you have to take responsibility for yourself because that's the only way we can develop. Because when you take responsibility for yourself, you will then acknowledge the bad choices that you would have made. Then you will then be able to learn from those choices and become a better man. So that falls under accountability and also responsibility too. If a man has a family, and this is a very important thing for me, you have to take up that responsibility and take care of your family as well. This is something I saw my grandfather do. He did this. And it's something that's very close to me as well. Take up your responsibility. If it is you can't be there 100% of the time, but a phone call, do that. Call your kids. make sure and financially provide for them, as small as it is, because a man who has integrity and a man who is accountable, he knows that even if he has to go on the road and pick up bottles at the side of the road to ensure the financial security of his family, he will do it, because a little bit could go a long way. These are the things that I believe is what manhood truly supposed to mean, based on my my experiences. Yeah.
Mm. Integrity, accountability, responsibility.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing a nice trend here. And I think this is something that we certainly need to see more in in society, with men accepting their roles and responsibility
Yeah.
and doing what it takes to make it happen for their family.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned that your grandfather provided for his family. Your grandmother never worked. There's ongoing conversation in the social media space with men are providers and a woman should stay in the home, and the man ought to do whatever he could to provide for his family.
Yeah.
And I support that. I agree with that. However, we are living in times of change. The economic situation
Yeah.
is a bit difficult. What are your thoughts now when it comes to a man being the sole provider of his home, notwithstanding what is taking place in the economy of society now? Do you agree that how things were, where the man was the sole provider, that is how things should continue to be, regardless of the circumstances?
I think that comes down to each family decision. I would say that.
Mm.
All right. I have seen where there are men who handle 100% of the financial responsibility, and they have become highly successful. Let me share an experience. Something I observed. So I have a good friend. I wouldn't call his name now because he's a very wealthy man in society, but I remember when I met his wife. She was engaged. She had a child from a previous relationship. And I looked at her and I didn't think much of her because she was dressed really humble, real humble, long skirt, her hair was natural and all that. And I was saying, but what kind of, you know, she ain't looking outstanding to me, so I didn't have a good view of her at that time. My grandfather saw her and he said to him, "You have a good woman on your hands there. Take care of her. Hold on to her. Treat her right." He in his wisdom, having all those years of experience, because my grandfather died at age 89. All right. See, lived a full life. Years later, I saw what my grandfather was talking about, because this individual became very wealthy, very, very wealthy. So I was asking him, how come he became so wealthy? And he said he became wealthy because of his wife. I was like, really? He said, yes. And he explained something to me. He said when he was doing his various attempts at business, he tried to incorporate his wife into the business, but she couldn't, handle the responsibility of it. So she told him, "Baby, hear what's happening. I will take care of all the household responsibilities. I will make sure the children get to school, they will get home. You just focus on business. You'll have nothing to do in the house. Nothing." And he said because of the focus that his wife afforded him to have is the reason why he's wealthy now. Because he never had to worry about ironing any clothes, because he knew that was taken care of. He never had to worry about getting the children to school. That was taken care of. He never had to worry about any of those things. He just focused 100% on business. And it's because of that he became successful. So I pointed in that direction because, there's a narrative that says that family model where the man goes out and work and the wife stays at home, it cannot work in this modern setting. But there are situations where it has worked and it has yielded a high level of success. There's a book written by Donald Trump where he said how to become a billionaire, right? Now, let me put this out there. I never read it for myself, but someone quoted it for me. And it stuck with me. It reminded me of this situation with the individual that I just spoke about. And what he said was pay persons to do the mega task, such as ironing and cooking, washing the car, and all of that, so that you could focus 100% on business. Because he's talking about a high level of focus where you are not distracted by those other responsibilities. And it reminded me of my friend's situation because his wife afforded him that focus. Because he was not distracted or worrying about having to iron clothes, having to cook, where the next meal coming from, is the house full of groceries, because she was handling all of that. And he just focused on business. So it can work in a modern day setting once everybody has the same mindset and everybody honors their role and function within that dynamic of the family, right? But I am not against both parties or husband and wife working. I cannot say that I am against that, but I am also saying too that if there is that focus there and everybody honors their role and responsibilities, the dynamic of husband and wife there in regards to the husband working and the wife is not working, it can work. It can happen as well. Yeah.
Okay. So what I'm getting is that it boils down to the family situation.
Yes. Yes, it does.
It isn't because this works for this particular family, it means that it will work for the whole other family.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
I think that's the approach that should be taken when it comes to that issue. Because I am seeing it on social media where persons are saying, this is how it ought to be. This is how it should be.
Yeah.
And not taking into consideration everything else that is taking place.
All right.
So
All right.
I think that is the point that should be emphasized. That it all boils down to the individuals within that particular family setting.
Yeah.
There's a underlying factor that I picked up, and that is mentorship.
Mm.
You seem to have been mentored by your grandfather,
Yes, sir.
and you are taking that same approach to your sons, 5 sons.
Yeah.
Why is mentorship important in this journey of manhood?
I think it's important because it can assist individuals in avoiding mistakes. That's one of the key things that we have to look at there, because all right, let me put it this way. If I were to go into a bar and I sit down in the bar, I may be going through depression and I pick up a bottle of whiskey and I decide to dive into that bottle. But there's someone who's sitting next to me that is drunk, stone cold drunk. And he turns to me and he says, "Youth, please don't go down that path you are looking to go down there. Don't give yourself over to alcohol." I can do two things right then and there. I can take his mentorship, or I could reject his mentorship and I can say, "But you drunk right now. So why you telling me not to get drunk and you drunk?" And I would be foolish if I take that response, because it could be that he is drunk because he cannot help himself, but he lives in regret because of his habit. And he's now trying to guide me to stay away from the path that he has already walked. and is stuck. So this is the reason why I think mentorship is very important. Mentorship can assist us in avoiding the errors that were made in the past, and it can assist us on capitalizing on the positive actions of others which brought positive outcomes in the lives of others as well. And this is the reason why I tell, like, when I talk to persons who want to get into business and so forth, to read books. Read books from business persons who did it before, because we can learn from their mistakes. The trial and error thing, I think that is expired, because there were tons of persons who did it before and they have put all their errors in a book. You could even go up on YouTube and listen to an audiobook and learn from their errors. So my thing is, learn from the errors of others so that it can be avoided, but duplicate the actions of those who had positive outcomes. And this is why mentorship is so important.
Mentorship, reading books. Tell me about the last book that you have read that has left a powerful, a significant impact on you.
That really easy. Yeah, that really easy. I actually started to read the book over again recently because I endured some situations, and that book is The Four Agreements.
Four agreements.
The Four Agreements. I would advise every single individual to read that book. It kind of leans in the direction of Stoic philosophy. Yes, and because it teaches you to never take anything personal. You understand? Be impeccable with your word, but always do your best. And you see those principles there. At times I struggle with it, but these principles, I think, are the foundation to success. Is the foundation to success. Those principles there. So that is the last book I read. Actually, I'm still reading it, and I would encourage anyone to read that book.
The Four Agreements. I know this book. I think I started reading it, but I never completed it.
So yeah. This is actually the third time I'm reading it.
Wow. So yeah, I think I need to read it. Yeah, I've heard multiple persons spoke about how good and how impactful this book has been on me.
It is. Yes, it is. I'm talking about it now, and my paws raising, all kind of thing. Yeah. That show you how impactful that book is. Yeah. It's a must read for everybody.
A must read. Lovely. You mentioned depression.
Yeah.
Depression has been on the rise, especially since COVID-19.
So true.
There are a lot of men who are dealing with depression and silently. Even recently, like just a few days ago, there was this well-known rapper who took his life. And I saw an interview of him probably like about 6 months ago. And he broke down during the interview. Men often have an issue with showing their emotions, with crying. Depression, on the other hand, is that silent killer of men. Have you ever experienced depression in your life?
Yes, I have experienced depression. I went through a series of events that really tested me mentally, and it really had a negative impact on me mentally and emotionally and so forth. And so much so that I had to go for counseling. I started to get anxiety attacks, and you see, a lot of times depression comes from uncertainties and anxieties, fears, and forgive me, because as I remember it now, I kind of getting a bit emotional about it, but I think the best thing is the one, once you have identified that you're going through depression, the first step is actually admitting, say, I am going through this, you know? And the other part is to seek help. If it is you have to go and get the counseling, go and get it. I know sometimes counseling can be a bit expensive, but if it is you need to go to probably, I say, a spiritual leader, go and get the counseling, but also ensure too that the people that you are going to have the right mindset as well too, because I have to put a little air caution when it comes to spiritual leaders as well, because sometimes they counsel with biases now, you know, because I know of a situation where there was domestic abuse and that church didn't believe in divorce, and it eventually ended where the man killed the woman and she stuck around because the church didn't believe in divorce. Very unfortunate situation. So we have to be cautious about these biases that are involved in counseling as well, because it could be detrimental as well too. But go to someone that you can trust, someone that would be fair in their advice. Another thing that you can do, this is what was taught to me, is box breathing. So you can go up on YouTube and you could research it, and you'll see how it is. I wouldn't go into the description for that now. All right, and exercise, because a lot of times persons who go into depression, they they lose the zeal to do the things that they love to do. So get back into those activities as well too. Burn out some of that cortisol. Take a walk around the savannah, early morning stroll, or early morning run. Burn out some of that cortisol there. All right, so that it will assist in bringing you back to a place of mental stability. Right, but get professional help as well. Take it very serious. Yeah.
If it's okay with you, I want to go a bit deeper into that experience that you had. Is that okay?
Yeah, for sure.
When you were dealing with these mental issues, what were your thoughts?
Um, being afraid, of losing. That was the thought. And you see, sometimes too, when you live in a place of fear of loss, people tend to take advantage of you as well too, because they know that you are afraid to lose, and they can insult you, and they'll emasculate you and so forth. So sometimes even depression allows you to be disrespected, for you to accept disrespect, and you even disrespect your own self by accepting that treatment because of depression as well, right? So I would say the fear of loss I think is a key component in depression. And sometimes, now this didn't happen to me, but I'm just talking in a general sense, because the fear of loss can cause a lot of real pain. I was even told that when someone is going through loss, it feels like a gunshot to your chest. The physical equivalent to that loss is a gunshot, right? And you want to relieve that pain, and sometimes suicidal thoughts could come into play. Now, thank God that I never entertained that, because I didn't want to bring shame to my sons. So I never entertained those thoughts then and there, but it is something that, and I'm glad you brought up the question. I don't have an issue sharing, because I am hoping that as persons look at your podcast, that they can learn from what I'm saying, and it can pull them out of that hole of depression. So loss is one of the key components that I was feeling there. Yeah.
That fear of loss.
That fear of loss, correct.
Why do you think it is important for a man to address his mental health?
your mental health impacts every single thing. It even impacts you physically. I remember talking to a businessman and he told me that he was a part of a very prominent organization in Trinidad that went under, right? It went under drastically because of the fall of the real estate market in the United States. And he was losing millions by the day. And he was going through depression. And he said when he went to the doctor, he had ulcers on his stomach. And the doctor put the blame on depression. You know, because with the rise of cortisol, there are a lot of things that happen. Diabetes, high blood pressure, because you are in a place of anxiety. And when you are there consistently, it impacts your blood sugar levels. It impacts your blood pressure. Because if we understand how that actually supposed to work, if you are in danger, there's the rush of adrenaline, which is supposed to hit your muscles and you're supposed to be able to run faster, jump a little higher to escape danger. But your mind can see danger in several different things and go into that same response. So if you are going through a financial struggle and you are in a place of fear, or you may be afraid of losing your home or so forth, it goes into that same response. You know, if it is that you are afraid of losing your family, your brain goes into the same response. The adrenaline pumps, the cortisol is on the rise, and the glucose goes into the blood because you're expected to run. But this is what the brain has been hardwired to do from since ancient times, because the dangers for our great ancestors was running from a saber-toothed lion, maybe, and you'll get that adrenaline pump and you'll be able to run a bit faster, climb a tree quicker. But now that the dangers have changed, and as the Bible says, uh, men's hearts are failing for fear. It could be referring to heart attacks because, of the modern day stresses that exist. So we need to actually, visiting our old point, these things actually need to be addressed seriously, especially as it relates to manhood. Yeah.
You mentioned counseling, that you went to counseling.
Yeah.
And I have been seeing that there are a lot of men who choose to not seek help because it may make them appear to be weak. That a man should be able to deal with his issues. But you sought counseling. Why is it important, or why was it important for you to seek counseling?
Because of the responses that my body was actually giving me. Because of the depression, I started to get anxiety attacks, and I didn't even know it was anxiety attacks. I just used to feel like my whole body got stiff. And it's after that, it's through counseling actually that I recognized that it was anxiety attacks that I was enduring. Because we must find an outlet to vent, right? We would consume food and we would get rid of waste when we use the bathroom and so forth. That is a vent to get rid of toxic components that dwells within the body. We also have to know that there are emotionally toxic components that can enter our minds due to maybe being around narcissistic people, bad experiences. And if we hold on to these things, just as if we hold on to waste within the body, we can go into septicemia. Mentally, we can go into septicemia as well too. If it is we do not vent the toxic emotions and the toxic thoughts that could stay within our minds, and this can stay for years. And then we get heart attacks, we get high blood pressure. We are stressed out consistently. We're always in a place of anxiety. That is the reason why it is important to get counseling. Because if those things are held on to long enough, it could even lead to a place of suicide. Look, Just this morning, a good friend of mine contacted me, a colleague of mine, and somehow the conversation digressed into men and depression and so forth. And he mentioned to me that he had a relative who he and his wife was, going through a separation, but he had the child. The wife ended up revealed that the child is not his own, but he kept the child. He still kept the child, and one day the police came to take the child, and the wife was there as well. And she keeps saying, the child is not yours, it's not yours, it's not your child, you're not the father. And the guy, like, he went insane at that moment. Probably that was a build-up of years or months maybe of dealing with that stress. But what the action he took was really extreme. He said, so this not my child. This not my child. Okay, just no. And he took a cutlass and chopped off the child's head. Look at what that led to. Now, suppose he had someone that he could vent to. Probably when the wife came with the officers, maybe it could have had a different outcome because he would have already vented some of the toxic thoughts and experiences and how he's feeling within this whole situation. But instead, he probably kept it in. I don't know the full dynamics and mechanics of that situation, but probably kept it in. And it manifested itself physically with his action. My colleague also told me that this gentleman is in prison and he's taking newspapers and stuff and making planes and cars and all that in prison. He went off the rockers, They believe he's mentally disturbed now, mentally challenged, and is in prison. So I'm saying all of that to show that, it is vitally important to vent these things.
I've never heard it put across like that. In terms of your physical body, when you consume that, you release the waste. And likewise, it's the same thing mentally, that you need to release the waste, the toxic elements of your thoughts and your emotions. Yes, that's a very interesting perspective. I like that. You spoke of venting. You also spoke of violence. And men, in many instances, and as from your example as well, often vent in such a way that leads to violence. That isn't in all instances. Yeah. What are positive ways that a man can utilize in order to release these negative thoughts and emotions? How can he positively, how can he vent in a positive way that wouldn't lead to violence and destruction?
Um, well, I have to go back to seeking professional help, counseling. You know, that is one way that could be used as a safeguard in regards to not going down that path. You know, um, in addition to that, finding your own motivation rather. Like for me, I never entertained negative thoughts because I didn't want to bring shame to my boys. Where people had to be telling them kind of foolishness and so forth. So find what motivates you. You want to live long for your son and for your daughter. You don't want to bring shame to your family. So you have to capitalize on these motivations so that you wouldn't venture down that path. Because look, there's the argument of temporary insanity, right? Because someone could argue that the gentleman who I just referred to would have went temporarily insane and committed that act. So it is important that we vent. I also spoke about with the rise of cortisol levels in your body, exercise to burn it out, right? So who knows? A good run around the savannah could calm your thoughts. Maybe. So these are the various aspects. Now, I'm not a professional psychologist. Let me throw that out there. But but I did study psychology, and from those things, I would say could be good outlets to be able to vent, get rid of those toxic thoughts that would be there, because that final action that guy committed, I would consider that to be septicemia, emotional septicemia, where it manifested in that way. He became mentally sick because of the experience. So it is an important event, and those ways are just some of the ways you can do it. You could probably Google some stuff as well and see what direction it could point you, and you choose the one that best suits you.
You mentioned exercise, and I want to agree with you 100%.
Yeah, I know you a man. Yeah, or
Because
something.
yes, I have used exercise to deal with the mental and emotional issues that I have experienced. And I guess we all experience these things. And it has shown, there is documented evidence that exercise helps to reduce that cortisol level. It helps to make you feel better. It helps to to release the chemical and elements such as endorphins and serotonin, those feel good
Yeah,
chemicals. So
yeah.
I agree and I support that. I give my stamp of approval when it
Oh,
comes to exercise.
oh yeah.
So I've heard you mention shame quite a few times. And you use shame from a positive perspective, in the sense of you do not commit particular acts or things because it may bring shame to your family. So in that sense, you don't want your family to experience shame. So and it's being used in a positive way. However, shame can also be seen from a negative perspective. Yeah. We all deal with shame, and shame can sometimes prevent us from becoming the best versions of ourselves. Men, and I can speak from that perspective as a man, shame can really be an obstacle. How have you dealt with shame in your life? How have you overcome the challenges of shame?
Shame. Well, from what I've been taught, shame is actually first emotion that we feel whenever something negative happens to us, and then there are other emotions like sadness, anger, and so forth. I think the first thing that needs to be done is to actually identify it. And when you identify it, there's a choice that needs to be made right then and there. Am I going to allow the shame to hold me back, or am I going to convert it into something that's positive? A personal experience I had is I went to an organization that a relative of mine did not think I was qualified to join. They spoke about it openly, and the word got back to me. And I felt shame because of the closeness that I had to that relative. But I decided that I wasn't going to allow my shame and my anger to keep me from accomplishing what I set out to accomplish. I decided that is going to be fuel to prove them wrong. I that's what I did. So we have to make that choice, because there is a book I read called Think and Grow Rich with Black Choice. I love to quote this book when I'm talking to people, you know. And in this book, Dr. Dennis Kimbrough, who's the author of the book is written for persons of African descent, by the way, right? So I'm not sure that out there. And he said he went to poor Black America and asked them, "Why are you so poor?" And he said, some said I'm poor because my wife or my husband left me. I'm poor because the bank took my home. I'm poor because my family has always been poor. And good reasons for being poor, right? Because it has the shame there. It may have the sadness. It may have the anger. And where you go through self-loathing and you think you're not worthy enough of becoming successful because of your background, of your family, or what you have endured, or you may have endured a form of failure, or what you interpret as failure. Because I don't believe that word should be used. I think it should be called a lesson. Right? I kind of digressing a bit, but I think it should be called a lesson on how not to do this. So it's not failure, it's a lesson. You know? Thomas Edison is the classic example of that with the attempts of the light bulb. But going back to the topic, so he then asked wealthy Black Americans, "Why are you so successful?" Some said, "I'm successful because my wife or my husband left me." Some said, "I'm successful because the bank foreclosed on my home." Some said, "I am successful because I came from nothing and my family was always poor." So, same answer, two different outcomes. Same answer, two different outcomes. One group decided to allow their shame and whatever other emotions that they experience to determine the outcome, to just give in to the outcome. But another group allowed the shame and the emotions that they were experiencing because of that shame to choose the outcome. Yes, and I'm using that word choose intentionally because I firmly believe that we can choose our outcomes by making good decisions and also by being persistent. One of my mentors, I spoke with him yesterday actually, and I asked him, I told him I want to interview him for some videos that I want to do on how people became successful. He's a very successful gentleman when it comes to sales. And I asked him what made him so powerful in sales. And he said persistence. He said persistence in anything that you do guarantees success. Exact quote. Mhm. So I'm saying to you that even though you go through a hurdle, you can still choose the outcome. You may have to change your approach to the outcome that you want, but once you are persistent, you can gain it. And then also we touched on mentorship before, right? I am certain there's someone who would have accomplished what you want to accomplish. Purchase their book. Go up on YouTube. Listen to what successful people are saying and duplicate what they are doing as well in regards to mentorship. Yeah.
That's good. You have 5 sons. What is your view when it comes to vulnerability in a man?
Hmm. That's a touchy one there. I fairly recently was vulnerable in front of two of my sons, right? I was having a conversation with them about life and about making good decisions. I was even going as far as talking to them about how to choose a spouse as well too. What is the criteria? You know, even find out what are their values concerning money, about raising children, about spirituality. I was talking about that. And then I went into the direction of, I ended up telling them that I only have one regret about dying. Because I know we all have to die. This is a reality that we all have to face. We all will leave this earth. But the one regret I have about dying is that I will not be here to protect them, and to be here to guide them And at that moment, I was flooded with emotions and tears came out right, and they saw me cry. Because I really love my boys, and I feel like I kind of way here right now too, so forgive me. All right, but hmm, yeah, whew, yeah. So that that's a very sore point for me. Knowing that I will not be here to keep them safe, but my role and function as their father is to empower them enough that they can survive without me being here, and that is my greatest goal for them to be strong. And part of being strong is also being vulnerable as well too, because being vulnerable means that you would have to vent at some point. You will have to be vulnerable, but just be cautious with who you are vulnerable with. Because a lot of times when you express yourself and you reveal I would use the term your personal business, you have just given someone a key to your house. They can use that key to break into your home and take your furniture, or they can use that key to protect you. They will ensure that they keep that key safe so that no one can break into your home. They may even watch your home for you. Once it's someone that is truly trustworthy. So that why I go back to be cautious about who you vent to, but still, it is important to vent. Yeah.
Mm. Do you tell your sons that you love them?
Every single day. Every single day. I do.
Why do you do that?
I think it's important for them to know that, so that one, they will have that trust in me that if they are going through a situation, they can come to me. Give them that confidence to come to me and explain it, so I could go into daddy mode and bring some protection. You know? It also can assist well with discipline as well too, because they will can also understand that I am disciplining them because I love them and I don't want them to walk in negative path and make bad decisions as well too. And it will also encourage them to listen as well too, because they know that daddy loves them and I will always seek their best interest. I heard a quote on Facebook sometime back there where someone was saying that the only person who will ever seek your interest is your parents. They are the only people on earth who want you to do better than them. Everybody else is in a competition with you, except your parents. And I would like to believe that is true in most instances. I would like to believe that because I've seen the reverse in other families as well, where parents become jealous of their kids because of the level of success that they have gained. But coming back to the point is that love must manifest itself in words and in actions. And it is important for your kids to observe it because it will build their confidence in you so that you can become their mentor as well. They would know that they could come to you when they need to vent. They can come to you and they can trust you with the secrets that they may be holding. And you must have enough integrity to give them positive advice. Yeah.
Kieron, tell me of a difficult moment in your life that helped to shape your perspective on manhood.
Mm. I think losing my grandfather. I was a young adult when my grandfather passed away. And I I remember 'cause he had prostate cancer. And I was in the hospital when he died. And while I was walking out of the hospital, tears came to my eyes, and I would have remembered the fact that he wanted the best for me. At the time, I was in the auxiliary fire service, and I would have visited my grandfather a few times, and he boasted about me being in the auxiliary fire service to persons who visited him. I remember that. So I knew that he wanted me to be successful, you know? And I decided right then and there, I'm going to push myself aggressively to achieve the success that he could look from the spiritual realm and see his grandson has made himself a success. So I think that was a good point in my life where I decided to be aggressive about positive decisions.
I like that. How you were able to take a truly difficult moment in your life and use that energy to push you in a positive direction.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. I think that's something that a lot of us can truly benefit from. Taking the difficult moments, the trials, the tribulations, these events that sometimes seem like they are pulling us under, and actually use it as a springboard into success. Yeah. Tell me of a current challenge that you have and how you are working to overcome it.
A current challenge I'm having right now is actually a business venture that I'm in right now. It is well, I can't go into too much detail with it because I've non-disclosures and so forth that I have signed. But it is becoming very challenging because I haven't yielded any monetary gain from it as yet. But I was thinking about it actually the other day, and I recognized that I have to be patient. So this is actually teaching me patience. And I remembered the story about the bamboo tree, the Chinese bamboo. It grows deep into the ground. Can't remember how deep it goes, but it's actually laying the foundation for the growth that it would have above the ground. And sometimes we have to recognize that faster is not always better. And having that understanding is what is allowing me to, I would say, go through this challenge. When I was doing my bachelor's, we were doing some research on the motor skills of children in the city in comparison to children in the rainforest. And what we discovered is that the children in the rainforest develop motor skills faster, but the children in the city develop their motor skills faster because there were less obstacles. But the children in the rainforest, even though they developed slower, their motor skills, or as time passed, were far more superior than those in the city, and it was because of the obstacles that they faced in the rainforest. Don't despise obstacles. That is another thing that helped me to overcome the challenges that I am enduring right now. Don't despise the obstacles. It's going to help you with your motor skills.
That reminds me of the Stoic quote that says, the obstacle is the way. I think it's from Marcus Aurelius.
So Marcus Aurelius, yeah.
Yeah. Kieron, this question. If you were to die now, what would be your legacy?
If I were to die now, I think my legacy would be that in spite of my errors and my pitfalls and so forth, I people could still look back and see instances where I made a firm stand with integrity. I never yielded to corrupt practices. I stood strongly against it when it was identified, even in the face of persecution. I made a stand, and I made a stand against even those who we would consider to be an authority over me, and I did not submit because of a lack of integrity. And I think that is the most powerful thing I could leave behind. That testimony that Kieron Regis lived a life in spite of his errors of integrity. 'Cause even when I made errors, I admitted to it. I say I really was wrong there. And even that speaks to integrity too. I would say that speaks. And those things are intentional. I do that intentionally because I understand that I have children and I must be that example for them to see.
Kieron, this was a very insightful conversation.
Thank you, sir.
Where can viewers connect with you?
Well, there is a page called the House of Ifasiyun that is on Facebook. Feel free to visit it at any time. I'm also looking forward to generating some content while I'll be interviewing successful people right in Trinidad here. We don't have to go to the United States of America to find successful people. There are people that exist right here in Trinidad. Even my good friend Sankara here is an individual that has enjoyed a high level of success. And we can learn through mentorship. I'm hoping these videos will be a source of mentorship for those who desire to become successful in various crafts. Okay, so that's a look forward. So check it out on the House of Ifasiyun, and hope to see you guys visiting the page.
And I will put that in the show notes.
Okay, thank you.
Kieron, it was a pleasure and an honor to have you on Manhood Speaks.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I just want to say thank you for checking out the entire episode. Manhood Speaks is a space where regular men like you get to share their experiences so that they can inspire other men. If you wish to be a guest on this show, just send me an email at manhoodspeakspodcast@gmail.com. And I want to ask you to consider subscribing. When you subscribe, you are not just simply subscribing to another YouTube channel. You are becoming a part of a revolution. You are joining a community of brothers, men who are redefining what it means to be a man in modern society today. So subscribe, and I will see you in the next interview.